Yeah, great question. So I once had a leader that he said, "You're going to be nothing more than a trainer," and he didn't say it directly to me. I overheard it. He didn't know it, and it definitely had an impact on me. And I thought, oh, I want to overcome this. I know I can be more. And so for a long time, I was trying to hustle for my worth. And
today joining me is Jared Narlock. And Jared is a speaker, a trainer, a author, and I'm sure many, many other things. Jared, what is going on, my man?
hey, Nathan, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here with you. And those pieces as we talk about labels. I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I noticed something that I believe is very important when I looked at, you have two books, correct?
Yeah, the second one's on its way out, going to be available for pre-order soon, Becoming a Peaceful Powered Leader. Yep.
Yeah. So you have people-powered moments and peaceful powered leader.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does the word powered represent to you?
Yeah, great question. And it means a lot to me because what I see is that everybody has their own unique power. And it's something that we bring into the world in any interaction that we have. And that power may be different from person to person. It may be, with one individual, the ability to listen to them with empathy. And that's what they need from you. And you can bring that forward. But when we're really seeking to understand and connect with others, we find where we may be able to bring those pieces of power into another person's life that can change that, and being open to the opportunity of what our power can do with others, and that it's a unique thing that our journey is different from everyone else's. To stay out of comparison and judgment, and really step into the power that's within us and own that. And there doesn't have to be a label with what that power is, but that we're embracing it. And what I used to think sometimes that were truly gifts or powers for me were things I didn't want to be associated with because someone said this or that. I learned to step into it, and it's created some really cool opportunities along the way.
So how did you find the courage to step into the thing that you were kind of pushing away?
Yeah, great question. So I once had a leader that he said, "You're going to be nothing more than a trainer," and he didn't say it directly to me. I overheard it. He didn't know it, and it definitely had an impact on me. And I thought, oh, I want to overcome this. I know I can be more. And so for a long time, I was trying to hustle for my worth, and I became a director of people and organizational development and a vice president of talent development, and these wonderful titles. I'm like, I did it, but at the same time, I was still struggling. I was struggling to prove and to prove and to prove, and not realizing that the way I was truly impacting people was through embracing that skill set that I had learned from training, and eventually it helped me become a coach. And these people that I was given the ability to help grow and develop, I realized, oh, that's my purpose, to help others grow and develop and inspire them to take action. And that's a great thing. And I can do that in so many different ways. And stepping into that and realizing, hey, it's okay. If someone says I'm a coach, to say I'm a trainer, whatever it is, if I'm there to be able to help them, I'm going to step into that all day long.
That's a great perspective to have, I believe, with any label. Like whatever label people want to put on you, maybe it's one that when it's placed on you, you're not currently like feeling that label, but the ability to shift into all the different labels that you have to be able to serve people, I think is a very powerful tool that most people, I think we get stuck, kind of like your story earlier. We get stuck in what one version of a label looks like. And if it's one that we don't like, and I know this well from being somebody with the disability, I mean, the societal label of disability is one where we're fighting tooth, claw, however we can fight. We're fighting to prove our worth a lot of times when we really don't need to do that. So I can relate to that so much. How have you used your experience there to help other leaders shift into courage and action?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a great question. And that's kind of where this journey took me into writing Becoming a Peaceful Power Leader, because I noticed both when I was talking to different, organizational development researchers and different leaders I worked with, that there were some common things. And one thing was that people found peace when they were truly owning their reality and realizing, hey, like you said, I can step into this, I can embrace this, and let's see what doors it's open. But I can really carve out and choose that path. And then the word service that you used, I love, because not only is it setting and owning our reality, but building others up and extending gratitude and working to stay out of comparison and out of judgment, and knowing that that's their path. And if I focus on the fact that this is my path, and I don't need to compare, I can feel that gratitude and connection with them. And then ultimately that leads to a different level of service when we truly are in that mindset that I'm here to help, and I want to serve this individual. And from a leadership perspective, knowing our values, that was a big thing. I remember one time struggling with my values, and I really, instead of serving those that I had the privilege of leading, I made a decision that was self-serving. And it was something that I carried a lot of shame with for a while, and had to work through. But I didn't have the conversation with my significant other about my values. And one day I came home to her and I said, would you be okay if I came home one day and I wasn't in this role because I did what was right over what was easy? She said, of course, that's one of the things I love about you. And so making sure that we're connected to our values as leaders, and I work with them on that, so that in those times where it seems like, yeah, we know the decision we'd make and we're pressed against it, we truly do know, because we know our values. And in turn, we can truly focus on investing in others and taking the time to invest in ourselves as well. So those pieces connected in service to others, where I focused on helping other leaders with how to bring that into the skills that they already have that power within.
All right, man. So I want you to step into your trainer or coaching role right now. I want you to put that label on. And since you touched on values, I want to offer something that the listener or viewer can take away and take action on. So if you were talking to the audience, they were in a training session with you, what's one thing that you would recommend that they do to start to define or prioritize what their values are?
Well, it's exactly what you just did, which is asking a question, asking questions versus answers. So often people, they just think they naturally know their values. But if you think about it, not too many people take a step back and say, I'm going to really identify my values. And we say, well, I think this is a value, or I think this is a value. And we lots of times will name between like 6 and 12. But what has been found in research is most people have about 1 to 3 values that are firm, that there's no wavering from them. And so I always tell people, okay, don't come with the answer of your values. Even though you think you may know them, start with questions. And I provide them some questions to go through of, when did they feel that they were excited about what they were doing? And, where were there instances where they were rumbling with what they were doing? And after, they've had the opportunity to go through some of those questions, then I talk to them about, do you know your purpose? Have you identified your purpose? Because lots of times that connection to values will be connected to purpose. And throughout most of the process, it's just questions that they're answering. So it's unique to them and their journey, and reminding them that if they're trying to put a word to it, let it be their word. because I've talked with people. I know at one time I had this value, and I thought it was a great value, but I realized it was there because it meant something to other people, and it truly wasn't my value. And so identifying that, and encouraging them to really just own that that's what it is. Don't worry about, if it doesn't connect to someone else. If it connects to you, hang on to that. And so right along the piece of asking questions before giving those answers.
Awesome, man. So if you just heard that, I want you, when you get finished, I want you to sit down and start to ask yourself questions about your values. And I think something that you said that was beautiful there was the fact that how many of us walk around with like the cookie cutter set of values, and they're just ones that have always been around, so we believe that they are ours and we own them, just like labels. Are the ones that we're wearing actually the ones that we identify with, or are they ones that somebody else gave us? So I think that's super powerful. And I'd be curious from your experience. So you said when you did the exercise, you realized that there was a value that you were holding on to that wasn't yours. What was that value? Because I'm sure there's people that are gonna listen to this and they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I see that for myself now when I did this."
Yeah. Well, it dealt with, a form of money. And, it was a piece that people were saying, oh, you've got to hustle, you've got to get that next step. And when I thought about it, I thought about, no, that's not why I've been doing this work. This work is truly about connectedness. And yeah, I always want to be able to take care of my family. And if we can do a trip here or there, great. But that's not what fuels me. That's not what motivates me. And I saw some wonderful people that I learned from that was what motivated them, which is great. If that's what motivated them, that's wonderful. One of the things that I learned in coaching that was embedded over my years was withhold judgment. Bring forward curiosity, withhold judgment. And so sometimes people are reluctant to say, yeah, money is a big motivator because they're afraid they're going to be judged for that. No, if it is, great. But they saw my passion for developing content, the books and what I was writing. And I think, they just went to that. And so I thought, oh yeah, I guess that's what it is, because I hadn't taken the time to ask myself those questions and really identify it. And I'm carrying this, as you said so well, that label around of the value that it didn't resonate. And when I realized that, it was a different perspective. And I felt completely different when I truly was going into that value of connectedness. And it carried over into my leadership as well, that along with connectedness, I'm very protective of people, that I care about. And so if I see something happening to someone that, I can help with, being able to step in and say, hey, there's something I can do there. And just realize that it was different motivators for sure. Great question.
What a beautiful segue there, because before we ever got started today, you mentioned something that has had a huge impact on your journey. And I think you said very protective in your statement there. So you said safety has been a big part of your journey. Can you dive into that a little bit and why that has shown up for you?
Oh, wow. I love that and that observation there. And it's something that I've worked with in different ways, because I came up, growing up, and my father and mother were both in the Air Force. My father actually retired from the Air Force, and neither one of them went to college. And, growing up, what I knew was the Air Force, but I always loved education. And so I didn't know different ways to grow and develop. I only knew college. But for me, it was something that wasn't attainable. And so I didn't know how to get there. All I knew was my dad regularly, and he did it with good intent, said, take the safe route, and don't make life harder on yourself. And so I joined the Air Force, but I joined with the intent of knowing at the time when I joined that they were going to pay 100% tuition assistance. And so I joined and I went and I got my degree. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But what was so cool is I had a wonderful a mentor, my first leader, and she's like, Jared, there's so many other ways you can learn. And it just opened that piece. But I've still always maintained that level of wanting to be safe in that. And sometimes that has struggled, I found, for a while until I really connected to my values that, wait a minute, this safety can be looked at in a different way, and it can be harnessed as a power in the way that I help others, and that connectedness. And so it took some time to realize that, and what safety truly meant, until I did identify my values and truly connect to them and realize, oh, I've been looking at this in a different way. And my parents did a wonderful job, and they taught me what they knew. And it got me to a certain point. And then as I explored further that development and those values, it opened the door to new horizons and realizing, oh, no limits, no limits. For a while, that safety had a limit on me for sure.
So looking back, what did your definition of safety look like before, and how, like, if you were to define it now, what is your definition of safety?
Yeah, before it was almost a control aspect of, safety, and if I do this and don't take a risk, or it's got to be a really educated risk, versus now that safety is truly being able to step into, as we talked about earlier, that power, and knowing that safety is how can I extend and help someone else out, and show them that through their power within them, through the coaching aspect of guiding them, there's these greater opportunities, and creating that safe environment for them to do that, where they feel as though they can be vulnerable, where they can step into that courage and know, hey, I'm going to be right here supporting you. And it's okay to take that risk if you feel good about it. And so, yeah, it's transitioned into almost an aspect of control, versus now creating an environment where people can let go of that worry, and be open to where their growth takes them.
Letting go is so important in so many different ways. One of the things that I focus on a lot, and I think that it's very important in this conversation, and I actually hope, I don't know how many podcasts and stuff you do on a regular, but I hope this is something that nobody's ever asked you before. But I'm curious, looking at your own journey, if you could dive into the aspect of leadership and a time when maybe during that journey you felt lonely, and how you've kind of dealt with that over your time as a leader.
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that I've reflected on. I have a practice of really, my wife and son, they like to sleep in on Saturdays. And so Saturday mornings I get up and I reflect on what's happened the past week, what does the week ahead look like, and where, might be opportunities to extend gratitude through thank you cards and pieces. And I remember this one Saturday realizing that, and it was a time that really was the tipping point from the value perspective. I was in an executive role and was a part of a project, and I wasn't the lead on the project. I was, one layer removed, but a piece happened in the project that really impacted a lot of people, and I knew that there had to be some accountability there. And in that moment, I was worried more about self-preservation than service to others. And it's a unique feeling because, I would have loved to have said, oh, I did this and I rose to the occasion and I did that. And I feel like today I would be able to do that because I have the alignment to the values. But I was really in a point where I felt alone, because I thought, okay, this person over here, they're trying to do their best right now. And their lead of the project. I'm trying to stay away from it because I don't want to have the negative outcome that comes from this, what was essentially a mistake, and it impacted a lot of people, and it had to do with their pay. And it was a lonely place. It was a lonely place. And I think it was lonely because in that moment, I forgot about my intent as a leader, to serve others, to help them. And so I was trying to self-preserve, and it became very lonely, I think, because it wasn't in alignment with my values, to where anytime I've been in alignment with my values and that peace is there, I'm able to go to somebody and feel good about it and share something and say, hey, this is what's going on right now. I'm thinking through this. Do you have any insights? What are your thoughts? And also feeling good about the decision that I made. And I knew in that moment, the decision that I made, I didn't feel good about. And ultimately, that's when I knew, okay, I'm out of alignment here. And what's going on? Because this usually would have been a no-brainer. And there was a lot of self-reflection and soul searching there. And it's something that I'm thankful today to know what I do in that instance again, because I'm aligned to that peace, and it feels much better.
I love that you said the alignment led to your ability of being able to talk about it, because that is the one thing that creates the most loneliness for sure, is we have problems and we feel like we can't talk about it. We don't want to be a burden to other people. And I've been thinking about this a lot with where we are in the world. The one thing that I hate when people are talking, they always say, well, go ahead and give me a call if you need to talk. And I'm like, that's not how we need to do that. They're not going to reach out if they're in a state where they're feeling that way. They're not going to reach out. So with a peaceful, powered leader, what are some of the things we can expect when we're going through the book? What can we expect to learn?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I focused on, because I got a lot of feedback from different leaders, there's so many great books out there, and I'm a big reader, and it's written from a coaching perspective. So you can expect to see a lot of questions that lead to reflection, but I wanted people to be able to apply right there, because sometimes I'm reading a book right now and I heard a couple of good things, and I'm like, oh, how would I apply that? And so giving the reader exercises that they can go through in the moment that take them from, hey, I've just heard this, I'm aware of it now, I want to do something with it, to an exercise that takes them into application. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. And I have a tool in there as well that just happened by chance. It's called the Peaceful tool. And of course, Peaceful is an acronym. And that acronym is something that comes towards the end after the 6 pieces that you've now had the opportunity to go through exercises, to go through application after the reflection. And then this is that alignment tool to be able to go back to and see, hey, where am I at? And the first one is, peace starts with accountability. And so where am I being accountable in this situation? And is it that I need to ask someone, to talk with them? And I love that you mentioned that piece about, we so often say, hey, if you need to talk to someone, reach out. And that's so important what you said, because that puts a weight on someone's shoulders. Just like if I'm saying, hey, what can I do to help? Well, if that person's in, a certain state that they're in, I've now just given them more of a burden instead of being able to help. Looking for those opportunities to say, okay, from a peaceful, powered perspective, if I'm assessing, one, peace starts with accountability, and then 2, that the E is embrace the full spectrum of emotions. And there's a social researcher, she's a PhD, Natalie Kogan, who she taught me this, and it was so powerful. She said, Jared, we all have emotions as human beings. We have the same emotions. And she said, I quit a while ago calling them positive and negative. And she said, I call them easier and harder, because we need to be able to embrace them all. They're not negative emotions, they're just harder emotions. And so where am I at in my emotions? if I'm being accountable, I'm asking myself that and saying, oh, this is a hard emotion. This might be why I'm struggling right now. What can I do to embrace it so I can, go through it, which is good. I don't want to push it away and get over to this easier emotion that I enjoy being in, and that it's a peaceful place. And there's a tool set in there, that peaceful acronym that brings it back to that. But again, it's harder to follow that if I haven't applied those pieces. And so that's something I say up front, is that this is not a quick cover to cover read. Give yourself 30 days to read it as if it were almost a development process. Because I know you work out and I work out, and we know when you make those gains, a true lifestyle change, it usually takes about 60 days. 60 days for it to start to feel routine in that habit. And so it's set up to build that routine in as you read the book, and take those actionables. And when you're done, not saying, wow, I feel great, there's some great insights, but I took those insights, I did the exercise, I applied it, and now I'm seeing the results in real time.
Well, my audience is definitely used to that, because I thought the same thing when I was writing my book. Was like, okay, what's the point of writing it if you can't apply what I'm writing about? I wanted people to have actionable steps as well, because that's how change and transformation happens. So I'm right there with you. So I saw that you do a lot of running. Mm-hmm. And you are a contributor to Pencils of Promise.
Yeah.
How did that get started for you, and why is that important to you?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question. I read The Promise of a Pencil, who's the founder, Adam Braun, the founder of Pencils of Promise, and really was connected with what he was doing, being a educator for almost 16 years. My focus is adult education and the development there, but I love educating in general. And so when I heard about Pencils of Promise and what they were doing, I thought, how can I, be a part of this? And so I've contributed in different ways, and was supposed to, here in just a few weeks, run the Chicago Marathon as part of the Pencils of Promise team, and raised money that'll go to Pencils of Promise. Raised the full amount. It's going to be carried over to October of next year, and plan on running with the Pencils of Promise team Chicago Marathon. But it's just something that's close to near and dear to my heart. The fact that what they do is so awesome, Pencils of Promise, of not just saying, okay, we're going to build these schools, but seeing that, hey, we're going to help raise the funds, and then the people in that community help with these pieces. So there is that investment and that accountability, which has been shown when there's a partnership. Accountability, I always like to say, is a partnership, and when groups come together in that partnership, it creates such a different impact and much more lasting outcome. And it's no wonder why they've now built hundreds of schools that are continuing to develop children in their growth and development. And so something near and dear, great, and happy to be a part of, and appreciate you bringing that up.
So, Pencils of Promise education. I want you to imagine now that you are responsible for writing a brand new dictionary. You are in charge of creating a dictionary. And I want you to think that you came to the word relationship. What does that definition look like when you're defining it?
Yeah, this would have been a lot different before I started this journey, and it's one that sometimes people say, "Well, tell me more about that." But when I think of relationship, I think of a few different things. I think of trust, and being able to extend that trust, and assuming positive intent with others, assuming that they're really trying to bring their best, and remembering that people's best looks different from day to day. And that, sometimes we get in the habit of thinking, oh, I know that they're able to bring more than that. Well, maybe they were on this day, but that's their best for today. And part of that relationship is, how do I foster that? How do I help? How do I partner? And then also, how do I set healthy boundaries as well? Because I've had some people say, "Oh, assuming positive intent in a relationship would be naive. I've been burnt that way." I say, that's a great point, but I can tell you the number of times that I've been, burned versus the number of amazing opportunities is far greater. And what I've learned over the way is if I set healthy boundaries, it's very easy for me to step into being able to assume positive intent and extend and grow that trust with someone. And so those I think would be the highlights if I were to write down relationship is, between two individuals, those pieces. And with all that, letting go of expectations, because if I'm assuming positive intent and setting healthy boundaries, then those expectations shouldn't be there because the way that you're looking at things, the way that I'm looking at things, we're never going to know exactly what that is. And so if we want that healthy relationship, having those pieces in there.
And I think also the communication piece is key.
Yeah.
So if someone takes your definition and they cross the boundary, you have the power to say, hey, that crossed my boundary, and acknowledge that. I think that's huge. I got two more questions. What do you wish people would ask you about leadership that they don't? It's usually left off the table and it's not talked about.
Probably the most common thing is what does kindness look like in leadership? And we think of kindness, and I think of it in so many different ways. I mean, kindness in leadership is building others up. It is investing in others, and the understanding of investment sometimes means having a conversation that's not going to be easy to have. And over my years as a talent development professional, I've had leaders come and say, "Oh, this person, I just got to get them off the team. They're not, giving the effort that's needed." And one of the first things I'll ask them is, "Okay, so what have your conversations been like with this person so that they've been aware of it?" And they usually say, "Well, I've talked this, then that." And I said, "So do you think they really are clear and they understand? And do you feel, if you were on the other side and you were in this situation that they're in, that you would be clear on it?" And I appreciate, the majority of leaders, they have a high level of integrity, and they'll say, "No, no, haven't been clear with them, haven't had those conversations." And in talking through it, we kind of figure out, okay, where can we start from? And most of the time on their own, they'll say, "Wow, if I would have just had the conversation back here, it would have been so much easier, and it would have been really kind and helpful to them. And now I waited until about the fourth time, and it's become something bigger, and it's going to be harder for them to really work towards." And I didn't do my part as a leader to serve them, and so I think about, what does kindness look like? I would love for them to ask that question, because I think it's really kind to show that gratitude and to build others up and to give them time for development, and also give them that feedback because they appreciate it, they want it, they value it, and learn to give that feedback on a regular basis so that it's healthy, so that if you do need to sit down and have a conversation over what's probably very small, they're able to say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can do that," instead of it being something that's very large and they're looking and thinking, what does this mean for next steps? And so that's a tough part of a leadership that a lot of people say, but really if we start at the right perspective in that relationship, going back to that word, it can lead to so many great things.
Yeah, again, I think that also goes back to labels and the way we've been taught for a long time to look at leadership for most people, and like that communication piece, we think about ourselves in the role and we forget that we're all human.
You hit it right there, right? I mean, we're all human beings. We're trying to do our best, and remembering to extend that grace. I I was so thankful. This team that I was with, my son had a massive seizure about a year and a half ago, and he had to be life flighted. We were in Bend, Oregon at the time. He had to be life flighted to Children's Hospital in Portland. And, what my best looked like the day before that happened and what my best looked like the very first day back were very different. And I had such a wonderful team that extended that grace throughout, knowing that on those days, I was still trying to give my best each and every day, but it looked very different. And they remembered that, hey, there's a human being here, and how can we help? And, it's just something that I've carried with me, and trying to always remember when you see something that sometimes we jump to, oh, what was that person thinking? And saying, hold on, how do I get out of judgment and back into curiosity and saying, okay, this is what's happening. How might I be able to help here?
So, Jared, the audience is ready to invest in your new book or in your previous book. Where can they go to connect with you and make that investment today?
Yeah, they can connect a few different ways on my website, Peaceful Power Leadership, and that's one way. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's where I have content daily, and both of those will have links to the new book, which is actually the pre-order campaign. I'm working with a great group that's helped with that. That'll be from October 1st to the 31st, and there's some bonuses, depending on how many books you buy. For some different opportunities that come along with the books. But those are probably the two places. And then, of course, on Facebook, Peaceful Power Leadership is, the company that I do the external coaching and consulting through. And so they can reach me there as well. And just connecting in general. I love to meet new people, love to connect. And so reaching out, and if they want to get a cup of virtual coffee and have a discussion, I'm excited to do that.
Well, I want to take the time before I ask my last question and acknowledge you for coming on and talking about the idea of leadership and what it looks like from your perspective. I know that people are going to walk away with great value, and they're going to be a better human being because of the conversation, I believe. So I want to acknowledge you for that. And I want to acknowledge you for like the courage. You talk about courage for the readers, but the courage to be someone who put out your message in two separate books. It takes a lot of courage to put out books and have your ideas and principles out there for people to look at, people to judge, and people to decide what they think about it. So I want to acknowledge you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Nathan. Same to you. I know you've done a lot of that as well, and I appreciate that. It's you're an inspirer for sure.
I appreciate that. So the final question is, what does no label defines me mean to you?
Yeah, great question. And I think no label defines me is I found a place of peace where there's no judgment. I mean, people can judge, but I feel comfortable in my own skin and who I am. And it took some time. It took some time connecting to values and getting towards that. But I'm not bound by labels. I bring forward my values, my connectedness, and helping others. And as long as I'm doing that, I know I'm doing what I love. I'm doing something that makes an impact in other people's lives, and that hopefully will continue to last. And it's one of those things when people always say, when we look back on, what are we excited about? And lots of times I'm not even going to know the impact through an educational session, but I know that I got to do something that I love, that hopefully people are able to grow and develop in. And there may be judgments along the way if someone's saying, I didn't care for that or this. That's okay. That's okay. I feel good about it, and I'm thankful for the opportunity.
All right, here's what I want you to do, audience. I want you to tag a leader in your life. We already know that you are a leader, but I want you to tag one other leader in your life so that they see this interview, they hear this discussion on leadership, and they learn about what it looks like to be a peaceful, powered leader. tag that person in your life and share it with them. And with that, you can see us next Friday for another episode of No Label Live.